Well, buckle up because Sophie Cunningham just did what the WNBA won't. She told the truth. On the latest episode of the Blonde Bombers podcast, which, let's be honest, is slowly becoming the most honest press outlet in the entire league, Sophie pulled zero punches. She gave us the inside scoop we didn't even know we needed. First off, that injury? Yeah, it's as bad as we feared. Sophie confirmed she tore her MCL, and her season is officially done. That alone was shocking enough, considering how tough she's been playing all year. But the real kicker? The foul that caused it came from Bria Hartley. Now pause. You'd expect this to spiral into another social media mess. A grudge, a feud. But Sophie did something totally unexpected. She defended Bria.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Yep. Despite Bria Hartley being dragged across Twitter for dirty play, Sophie shut that narrative down with a calm, almost eerie honesty. There was no bad intent, she said. It was just one of those plays. I was in the wrong spot at the wrong time. That sound you hear? It's the sound of every sports debate show scrambling to rewrite their talking points. Because Sophie, who has every reason to be angry, bitter, or at least vaguely passive-aggressive, came out and said, nope, not Bria's fault. She even added that they're friends. Good friends. Tried adjusting that while half the internet still wants Hartley suspended indefinitely. But let's not get it twisted. Sophie's not excusing everything. She's still calling out exactly what needs to be said. The physicality in the WNBA has crossed a line. It's like rugby out there, she said, and you can tell she's not exaggerating. In just one season, the league has watched Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, A.R. McDonald, Sophie herself, and Sydney Colson go down with serious injuries. Yet the refs are still letting elbows fly and knees twist like it's part of the entertainment package. And who's speaking up? Not the commissioner, not the officiating department. It's Sophie Cunningham on a podcast. Now let's talk about that podcast for a second, because apparently it's costing her more than a few microphone batteries. 3 fines. That's how many times Sophie's been fined by the league for literally doing what every fan wishes players would do. Tell the truth. And one of those fines was for calling out the officiating and, get this, making a comment about Paige Buchers, who isn't even in the league yet. So let's get this straight. You can foul someone hard enough to tear their MCL and maybe get a flagrant at most. But speak honestly on your podcast about foul calls and hypothetical draft prospects? That's a fine. Welcome to the WNBA. And it's not like Sophie's being reckless with her words. She's just being real, which, ironically, is more dangerous to the league's fragile PR image than actual violence on the court. But the moment that really hit different was she brought up Caitlin Clark. Now, Sophie could have skated around the topic like everyone else. Played it safe, given the standard she's progressing soundbite. But no, she said it plain and simple. If Caitlin weren't in the WNBA, she probably would have played by now. Let that settle for a second. She didn't say Caitlin's faking. She didn't say she's weak. What she said was that the brutality of the WNBA schedule and play style is so relentless, so unforgiving, that it's actively slowing down her recovery. Translation: the league that markets her is also the one breaking her down. That's not a jab. That's a reality check. And Sophie made it crystal clear that Caitlin's dealing with the same over-physical, under-officiated, no-rest environment as everyone else. She's just doing it with a microscope on her 24/7. And then there's the wild card, Skip Bayless. Of course he had something to say about Caitlin's absence. Of course it was ridiculous. Skip floated the idea that Caitlin Clark might not be injured at all, that she's using injury breaks for mental health recovery. Yeah, because God forbid a woman in sports actually have a real physical injury. She must be hysterical, right? Sophie didn't even flinch. She shut it down fast. That's a joke, she said. And you could hear the exhaustion in her voice, not just from dealing with the injury, but from constantly having to correct men who treat the WNBA like it's just something to mock on slow news days. But hey, what's a little gaslighting when you've got a birthday curse to deal with too? Yeah, you heard that right. Sophie revealed that she and Sydney Colson both got injured the day after their birthdays. Coincidence? Maybe. Cursed energy? Possibly. Symbolic of the WNBA's chaotic season? Absolutely. Because how else do you explain a league where your star players are breaking down faster than the arenas can sell jerseys? Where fines come faster than flagrant fouls? Where podcasts are more transparent than press conferences? This isn't a league in control. This is a league teetering. And Sophie, bless her, is giving fans a front row seat to the mess. Not a spite, not for clout, but because someone has to say it. Someone has to say that the officiating is inconsistent, that players are getting hurt unnecessarily, that the league doesn't protect the stars it profits from, that injuries are being mismanaged. That silence isn't leadership, it's avoidance. And she's doing all this with a torn MCL, a microphone, and a league that keeps trying to silence her one Venmo fine at a time. So where do we go from here? Because if the WNBA wants to grow, it has to face this reality. You can't claim to empower women and then fine them for speaking up. You can't pretend to protect players and then ignore the ones limping off the court. You can't build a brand on authenticity and then punish the players who actually have it. Sophie Cunningham may be sidelined, but she's still leading more than most of the people in suits. And as for Caitlin Clark, if Sophie's telling us anything, it's that Caitlin's silence isn't weakness. It's survival. It's endurance. It's keeping her head down while the league continues to throw her into the fire without a fire extinguisher in sight. But don't be fooled. That fire's still burning. And when Caitlin Clark steps back on that court, you better believe it'll be with a new level of intensity and maybe a few things to say of her own. Until then, we'll keep tuning into Blonde Bombers. Because if you want the truth in the WNBA these days, you're not getting it from the league. You know what's wild? Sophie Cunningham might be the only player in the entire league right now who's actually telling fans what's really happening. No PR filter, no agent-approved sound bites. No, we're just focused on the next game nonsense. Just truth. And in a league that's built so much of its brand around authenticity, you'd think the WNBA would be amplifying that. Instead, they're fining her into silence. And that says a lot more about the league than it does about Sophie. Because when a player like Sophie gets hurt, defends the person who hurt her, speaks honestly about the emotional and physical cost of this game, and still gets slapped with a penalty, you're not encouraging transparency, you're punishing it. Let's be clear, Sophie's not saying anything outrageous. She's not trashing the league. She's not accusing Bria Hartley of malice. She's not exposing state secrets. She's literally just pulling back the curtain. And for that, she's being treated like a liability. But here's the thing the league hasn't figured out. Players like Sophie Cunningham are the product. They're not just athletes. They're the content, the drama, the engagement, the reason fans come back. You can't promote access and then get mad when players start telling their truth. Because let's not pretend people aren't watching. The Blonde Bombers podcast isn't some niche side project anymore. Every episode makes headlines. Every quote goes viral. Every clip circulates like wildfire on WNBA Twitter. People are listening, and the league is clearly terrified. Why? Because Sophie's not just spilling tea. She's asking questions the league doesn't want to answer. Like why officiating is so inconsistent that every other game ends in a highlight reel of elbows and bruises. Or why players are getting hurt in such high numbers without any clear preventative systems in place. Or why the WNBA expects players to be professional, elite, and media-trained on salaries that wouldn't even cover rent in most of the cities they play in. Sophie's not being messy. She's being real. And the league doesn't know how to handle that. And now, thanks to her injury, she's got nothing but time to sit on that mic and keep peeling the layers back. Like that birthday curse. Sure, it might sound like a joke, but let's actually talk about it. Sydney Carlson and Sophie both got injured immediately after their birthdays. You know what that really highlights? How little rest players actually get. How overbooked, overstressed, and overplayed they are. Even birthdays, basic moments of joy, turn into high-risk days when your body's already at a breaking point. That's not superstition. That's a red flag. And Sophie, whether she realizes it or not, is laying out a blueprint for what player-driven reform in the WNBA might actually look like. Start with honesty. Start with visibility. Start with calling out the nonsense without sugarcoating it. Because right now, the official line is always the same. We're improving. We're growing. We're building something special. Yeah? Cool. But at what cost? You can't build the future of the league on broken knees, unclear injury reports, and $500 fines for podcast episodes. That's not a growth strategy. That's an HR disaster. And when Sophie brought up Caitlin Clark, she wasn't just casually chatting about her injury status. She was naming what the entire fan base has been whispering for weeks. That if Caitlin Clark weren't under the WNBA spotlight, she probably would have already been cleared to play. That her injury is being treated differently, not because it's more serious, but because of what she represents. And that's where the conversation gets dark. Because it's no longer just about bruises and twisted ligaments. It's about how we treat women when they become symbols. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie. She's a brand, a headline, a business asset. And when you're a symbol, people stop treating you like a human being. They start making decisions about you, not with you. They manage your image, control the narrative, spin your injury like a strategy instead of setback. Sophie sees it. Other players see it. Fans see it. And the longer the league stays silent, the more that silence sounds like complicity. And again, this isn't just about Caitlin or Sophie. This is systemic. Because if you zoom out, the pattern becomes obvious. Players speak up, they get fined. Players get hurt, league downplays it. Players show personality, league tries to control it. Players want equity, league says, we're working on it. Meanwhile, Sophie's mic is hot. Her leg is in a brace. And her message is crystal clear. We're not just basketball players. We're people. We're professionals. And we're tired of pretending everything's okay. That line alone, it says more about the WNBA's current state than any press release in the last year. And you know what's wild? There are probably dozens of players who feel the same way, but won't dare say it out loud. Because not everyone has the platform. Not everyone has the clout. Not everyone can afford to lose another paycheck. But Sophie's risking it. And that's what makes her dangerous to the status quo. She's turning injuries into statements, fines into headlines, podcasts into protest. And the league can either keep fining her or finally start listening. Because here's the deal. You can't silence every Sophie. You can't muzzle every truth teller. And you can't keep building a league on vibes and potential while ignoring the actual voices of the women inside it. Eventually, people get fed up. Eventually, fans stop buying into the dream. Eventually, players stop trusting the system. And that's when it all collapses. But maybe, just maybe, this is the wake-up call. Maybe Sophie Cunningham tearing her MCL, firing up her mic, and blowing the lid off everything the leagues try to keep buried is exactly what the W needed. Because if nothing else, it's forcing the conversation. And if the WNBA really wants to be the future of sports, as it loves to say, then the future better include players who speak freely, get treated fairly, and don't have to apologize for being human. You know what no one's asking yet? Where's the league support for Sophie after this injury? Because for all the love the WNBA shows in their official graphics, celebrating Pride Night, Women's History Month, or hyping up the next generation of superstars, when it comes time to actually protect and support those stars. Crickets. Sophie Cunningham, one of the most outspoken and recognizable faces in the league, just tore her MCL in a game that never should have gotten that physical to begin with. And what does she get? A couple tweets, a headline or two, maybe a brief camera shot from a bench. But there's no WNBA campaign for her recovery. No official statement acknowledging how much she's given to this league. No push from the commissioner to demand accountability for the foul that ended her season. Meanwhile, the fines for her podcast keep coming in right on schedule. Isn't that wild? It's starting to feel like the WNBA would rather cash her checks than defend her name. And again, this isn't about making Sophie some kind of victim. She doesn't even position herself that way. She's tough. She's resilient. She jokes about this stuff on air, like when she laughed about the birthday curse. But behind the humor is the same message every time. We're doing this alone. These players are out here carrying the league on their own backs, marketing themselves, advocating for each other, building fan bases through their personalities. And yet, when they get hurt or speak out, the system shrugs. Let's talk about that too. Why is it always the players doing the league's job? It's Sophie doing the injury updates. It's Caitlin Clark, even while sidelined, showing up at events, keeping fans engaged. It's Sydney Carlson on TikTok, making the league go viral. It's Chiny Agumike on ESPN, pushing the WNBA into mainstream sports talk. Where's the infrastructure? Where's the real investment in media training, marketing protection? Right now, the only thing the WNBA seems to be streamlined about is fining players for stepping even slightly out of line. Want to talk about officiating? That's $500. Want to criticize inconsistent calls? $1,000. Want to post a clip with some mild shade toward a ref? Boom. Another fine. You think they were running a fashion house, not a basketball league. And speaking of refs, Sophie's absolutely right when she compares the current state of play to rugby. Because that's what it is. This isn't about competitiveness anymore. It's about survival. And when survival becomes the default mode on the court, what do you think happens to the longevity of the sport? Every time a star gets bodied under the rim with no whistle, the message is clear. Sacrifice your health or sit down. It's one thing to say, let them play. But this isn't letting them play. This is letting them get broken. And what's wild is the league almost wants this kind of edge, right? Like it's trying to brand itself as tougher, grittier, more physical than people expect from women's sports. Cool. Great. But if you're going to market violence, you better have systems in place to protect the people absorbing it. Right now, that doesn't exist. There's no high-level player protection protocol, no real concussion policy, no league-wide medical transparency. And when players do get hurt, it's all handled behind closed doors, with players doing their own PR cleanup. Like when Sophie had to defend Bria Hartley, not because the league did, but because no one else would. No one clarified the incident. No one addressed the blowback Bria was getting. So Sophie, the one who got injured, had to do the job the league should have done. And that's exhausting, because the truth is, these women are playing in a league that still feels like it's trying to figure out if it's a business or a passion project. One minute, they're flying commercial and doing back-to-backs in 3 cities. The next minute, they're being sold to sponsors as global icons. Which one is it? Because you can't build the WNBA around personalities like Sophie Cunningham, encouraging her to be bold, funny, opinionated, and then turn around and fine her every time she lives up to that exact image. It's giving mixed signals. It's giving control issues. It's giving we love you until you cost us something. And the longer it continues, the more fans start seeing it. Because fans love Sophie not just because she's tough, or because she's Caitlin's protector, or because she dropped 25 on a random Tuesday. They love her because she's real. She talks like we talk. She reacts like we react. She's the kind of player who makes you care about the league, not just the scoreboard. And when the league slaps her with another fine, it doesn't make her look bad. It makes the WNBA look scared. Scared of players having too much power. Scared of losing control of the narrative. Scared of the conversation moving faster than they can manage. But here's the plot twist. It already has. Social media is where the real WNBA story lives now. It's not in the press releases or halftime segments. It's in Sophie's mic, Sydney's reels, Kelsey Plum's side eyes, and Caitlin Clark's deadpan post-game expressions. And the league needs to decide, are you going to ride the wave or keep trying to fight the tide? Because players like Sophie aren't going backward. She's already become the go-to for WNBA commentary. Already carved out a space where fans trust her version of events more than the league's. Already proven that when she talks, people listen. Even if she's on the bench. Even if her leg's in a brace. Even if the W finds her into oblivion. So what's the league's next move? They could try to muzzle her again. Try to frame her honesty as disruption. Try to push the narrative that she's emotional or controversial. But the fans won't buy it. Because when your house is on fire, you don't yell at the person pulling the alarm. You grab a bucket. And the WNBA better start grabbing buckets fast. Because if more players start doing what Sophie's doing, being unapologetically honest, naming names, breaking down what's actually happening behind closed doors, then this isn't just a podcast anymore. It's a movement. And maybe that's exactly what this league needs. A little less control, A little more chaos, and a whole lot more truth. And a league? Instead of embracing that, they're slapping her with fines like it's a punishment for being effective. But if they're worried about image, they might want to take a step back. Because the injury to one of the league's grittiest players, the public defense of a supposed villain in Bria Hartley, and the unfiltered truth about how Caitlin Clark is being handled, is what fans are actually tuning in for. It's drama, yes, but it's earned drama. It's real-life stakes. And it's far more compelling than a 20-second highlight of a layup. And speaking of Caitlin, Sophie's comment that Clark would have probably already played if this weren't the WNBA wasn't just a throwaway line. It was a massive statement. It confirms what many have feared, that this league's culture is physically harder on its players than most people realize, and not in a good way. The schedule, the officiating, the pressure, the expectation to always say the right thing and smile through it all. If anything, Sophie's podcast is showing us that the players don't need more media training. The league needs more player listening. Because if they keep trying to muzzle their own stars for saying what fans already know, they're not protecting the brand. They're disconnecting it from reality. Sophie's not the problem. She's the mirror. And the longer the WNBA tries to look away, the more cracks they're going to see when they finally face the reflection.